Civilizing America, a user's guide from the ground up. Chapter 14, Heal the Community. We can help distressed communities cooperate. One person's solitary effort can change a community. By yourself, you, the reader, the listener, can help integrate opposing viewpoints. Many small towns, losing their economic base, experience antagonisms that reduce their resilience. Polarization drains constructive energy. Some places people desert, while others become inhospitable to improvement. In the 2016 election, the more severe a community's internal disorganization, the more likely it was to vote Donald Trump for president. A clue to the response needed came after World War II, when Italy reorganized its government and studied how different regions would prosper. Researchers were surprised to find that it was not education, nor resources, nor developed industries that made the difference, but rather that people talked to each other about common concerns. The main venues there were choral groups, while here could be bowling alleys, sports events, church groups, clubs, and associations. The lifestyle and economics of small U.S. towns, 16,000 with fewer than 10,000 residents, can depend on how acquaintances develop a common purpose for their mutual benefit and care for each other. We can encourage this with public workshops that welcome people from all demographics. Study and Share Workshop. A format for sharing ideas person to person can accommodate even large numbers. Reserve a space big enough for expected attendees to be comfortable. Chairs should be easily moved with no tables needed, though one can be placed to the side for people to deposit extra reading material. Invite participants to bring one or more books or articles they want to share, discuss, or learn better. A sponsoring group can suggest material related to its common interest, but topics can draw on the full scope of human knowledge, such as car repair, gardening, outdoor activities, sports, health, child raising, environment, science, travel, music, entertainment, games, geography, history, and family issues. Within a scheduled ending time of 2 to 3 hours, the moderator explains that everyone will change partners several times. People pair first with someone they do not know well, bring their chairs together, and for 10 minutes quietly read material that interests them. The moderator then asks them to take turns explaining to each other what they read, and they trade ideas back and forth. After 10 minutes of this, everyone finds a new partner, and the group repeats the same steps every 20 minutes. Pairs balance their time between reading and listening to each other. Although a group using Study and Share for the first time may prefer the community-building emphasis of enabling everyone to talk to as many as possible, an option the group might adopt for the second half of the time is to let pairs combine with other pairs in small groups to discuss a theme of their choice. Those wishing to do so could utilize the perfect conversation guidelines in Appendix 1 to smooth out their exchange. The moderator can prepare a supply of these or post them visibly. Polarized attitudes tend to soften if people agree to share their interest rather than try to convince anyone else. Printed material facilitates this. Examining a page with our partner is the basic stance for gathering evidence, and discussing it elicits different feelings than asserting an idea based on our own knowledge. We are more prone to defensiveness about our personal opinion, while passing on another's writing is a learner's activity. The experience helps people discover common ground. Many have an interest they develop alone, not knowing of neighbors with a similar one, or that someone else might welcome hearing about it. Conversation channels open, and while people may not read much because not needing it for daily tasks, the setting encourages it as a way to connect with others. Finally, reading helps counteract our culture's apparent discount of the value of knowledge. A mother conversing with her teenage son about a birthday present for his friend cautiously suggested a book. Her son replied, "No, he has a book." Low information voters are a volatile cohort. With their thinking confined to slogans, they are easily misled. An activist can approach a local organization, arrange a study and share workshop, naming it whatever they wish, and promote it via media and word of mouth. That people meet out of care for their community is more significant than conclusions they reach. Churches with their own congregation to care for and missions to support, however, may conclude, "Our plate is full." Associations devoted to a single community need may feel the same, but their turning point is realizing that they can do together what they cannot do alone. The idea of America. A workshop based on the nation's founding documents can encourage a common understanding of it. Print out a page with preambles to the U.S. Constitution and Declaration of Independence, which we noted in Chapter 5, along with the questions below. The structure of the Study and Share workshop can be used with people offering their understanding of the ideas phrase by phrase and changing partners every 10 to 15 minutes. For deeper study, participants can divide into groups of 5, utilize the Appendix 1 guidelines, and examine separate terms. We the people. Did the designers regard us as one people? Do we now? How are we as a people the source of the Constitution? More perfect union. What does union consist of? Why would they say more perfect? Establish justice. What is justice? How do we establish it? What injustice would have concerned our founders? What concerns us now? Ensure domestic tranquility. What is domestic tranquility? Why emphasize it? How is it ensured? Who does it include? Provide for the common defense. What is defense? Common defense. How do we provide for it? What did they want to avoid? Promote the general welfare. What is general welfare? Who does it include? How is it done? What are obstacles? Secure the blessings of liberty. What are the blessings of liberty? How are they secured? Self-evident truths. What are truths? What makes them self-evident? Are they self-evident in society now? What stands against them? All men are created equal. Does men mean people? Does it include women and children? What does equal mean? Is it threatened? How is it defended? Unalienable rights. What does unalienable, now inalienable, mean? What are rights? Which ones especially are important now? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. What do these rights imply for the structure of society? Just powers. Consent of the governed. What are just powers? Which ones would be unjust? How do the governed consent? The group can apply these ideas to their neighborhood and today's world. What picture of society do these terms present? What did the founders want from this set of ideas? How has thinking changed since then? What should the ideas mean to us now? How are they implemented or violated? What goals do they imply? An alternative for group study is to print out for everyone a copy of Thomas Jefferson's first inaugural address, a brief but eloquent explanation of the ideas above. Community Unity Workshop. This format can aid a town divided by factions like competing religious bodies, police and African Americans, commercial and environmental interests, or immigrants and locals. Invite equal numbers from each side so neither feels sandbagged, and spend an afternoon like this. Distribute the perfect conversation skill list. Appendix 1. Explain the skills and ask participants to agree to practice them. Supply everyone with something to write on. Pair people first with someone from the other side whom they do not know well to find agreement on values of any kind and suggestions for the community. After pairs agree on what they can and condense their conclusions in writing, they join a different pair and share the agreements their pair reached. The new group of 4 tries to agree on what each pair brings and adds more agreements. When ready, they unite with another group of 4 and continue the same process. The group of 8 deciding what it can agree on that each 4 brought to it and adding more agreements. For the time available, groups continue to combine and reach more agreements, identifying values everyone can support rather than attempting to to resolve conflicts. Expanding groups need to employ communication skills deliberately, however, or individuals will tend to dominate. Units wishing to remain small can pursue an issue of their choice. At the end, a speaker from each concluding group reports to the assembly on agreements obtained. This format can be combined with other presentations and activities, such as by engaging in further community efforts to apply the agreements reached. Public Attitudes Workshop. Above, we noted personal qualities listed by John Stuart Mill that endanger self-government. People may be indolent, careless, or cowardly, and hence unwilling to expend the effort even to maintain the form of government. They may refuse to fight for it when it is threatened or attacked. They can be deceived, deluded, and cheated out of their government. They may become discouraged and panicked. They may surrender their liberties to a great man out of enthusiasm and trust him with powers that subvert their government. They may be unable to fulfill the duties it requires of them. They may not have sufficient forbearance to moderate their own violent passions and pride, to forego private vengeance or conflict, and leave resolution of disputes to the law. In such a case, a civilized government to be really advantageous to them will require to be in a considerable degree despotic, to be one over which they do not themselves exercise control, and which imposes a great amount of forcible restraint upon their actions. Distribute this list to participants and form groups of 5. Ask them to explore how these factors may be affecting their community, state, and nation, and a constructive response to them. Hear each group's conclusions and assemble a common plan to share publicly. Because the focus is on qualities people may view differently, groups will find it helpful to use the conversation skills in Appendix 1. Ad hoc group. An open group can address a contentious community issue. An example occurred in the lumbering town of Quincy, California, within reach of 3 national forests. It was polarized over forestry and environmental issues with hostility, vandalism, and fusillades of blame. People from the 2 sides avoided each other and ate in different restaurants. A forest supervisor finally called an environmental attorney, and a company forester joined them. The 3 agreed to collect a few people to talk. When early sessions erupted in shouting, the town librarian invited the group to the library, a neutral location where they could not make noise, and the Quincy Library Group sustained a 6-year effort that gradually involved the whole community. It touched on all aspects of logging, environment, and fire protection, and eventually developed solutions that influenced Forest Service practices and led Congress to pass a pilot project for the national forests nearby with support of both sides. Key elements were that respected people assumed leadership roles, invited others, and helped to focus the group. Anyone could participate. People accepted balance between competing values in the final plan, that no single one could win and exclude the others. Participants were proud of working through differences and scaled up to involve higher levels of government. Another example. Many years ago, I moderated a weekend conference between regional representatives of the timber industry, fishermen, and the environmental community to attempt to resolve long-standing contentions over the protection of fish spawning zones in southeastern Alaska. Speakers explained different aspects of the issue. Argument ranged widely, and as time passed, it appeared that lines had been drawn, putting a resolution out of reach. Despite that, the group continued, focusing on the crux of the problem, and belatedly common ground emerged. Had discussion ended sooner, the resolution would not have been discovered, and charges and lawsuits would likely have continued. Sheer contact. Experience in common is a social language. We realize we can know others as individuals, appreciate their values, and develop ideas even while uncomfortable. Addressing local issues, we mingle with familiar people and make progress over bits of common purpose. While my father was in Alaska politics, my parents would invite legislators to our home, both opponents and allies, with the understanding that they leave politics alone. Over dinners of fish, moose, caribou, and deer my father had taken, guests discussed hunting, travel, weather, resources, family, and other politically neutral topics. The result was that in his legislative work he never had to talk to strangers. As a child one evening, I had his main political opponent take an interest in a clay figure I was working on, and was startled to discover that to me he was a nice person. The same could happen in Washington. The president could invite all congressmen and their families to an annual picnic on the White House lawn, so families could develop relationships. Houses of Congress could seat their members alphabetically, parties could play more baseball, and members could listen to each other. The latter offers a benefit and drawback, however. Relationships encourage shared decision-making, though a party powerful enough to obtain all it wants has little incentive to do that. For those who see benefit in collaboration, personal connections are a start. Response to disasters. Communities struck by disasters, shootings, fires, earthquakes, floods, tornadoes, often need to respond to individual needs. While EMTs, firefighters, counselors, disaster relief agencies, and law enforcement respond through their role, an emotional impact can remain. People often have a personal reaction to work through, and we can help them do that with a consult. In a group small enough that everyone can hear each other, such as fewer than 30, explain that you will ask one question for everyone to answer in turn. When all have done so, you can ask another, inviting a limited response relevant to the group. such as, what did you feel when X happened? What are you feeling now? What thought came to your mind when X happened? What do you think about it now? What was your experience when X happened? What word summarizes that experience for you now? We focus on a single experience, fact, feeling, or quality that we believe affects nearly everyone. One person's answer can suggest a follow-up question for others. If one shares a loss, we can invite others to tell their experience with a loss. People's answers bring the group's dominant feelings to everyone's awareness and encourage mutual support. Leaders can meet later with those who have specific needs or divide the group into pairs or triads to share further details.